we've got camera now. Hi guys, how's it going? Joel K. Welcome to another Sunday night edition of Accessibly Live. This was supposed to be going this badly. Um, we had to restart the computer system for some reason. Swear to God, I'm not the only one with a bug around here. Um, as I was talking about, and you guys may have caught the oops edition of what I just sent out for about a couple minutes when we're having video problems. For those of you who are watching on the Thursday night edition of Accessibly Live, the conversation station, I called out and let everybody know that I was going to have a very short show on Thursday. I've been sick. I've been really sick. And as much as you can't tell right now, um, I'm dealing with this right now. I haven't been out of the main area where I live without one of these. Most of you guys know what this is. Algorithm has a bit of a hissy fit if I say the C word, but I have got it. I've got one of the newer variants, and it's kicking my butt pretty badly to a point where I'm not sure how long I'll be able to do the show because I am a little drained, a lot of drained right now. Um, Drinking a lot of water to keep me going, and my throat hurts like nobody's business. And yeah, no, it's not razor throat either, thank God. But I am dealing with this, that, and a whole bunch of other things. So I got an email from one of my regulars because they saw the show on Thursday night. If you saw that, you know that really short show, 13 minutes. Woohoo! And so we basically told everybody that we are, doing our best holding it together, but I am still sicker than a dog right now. But I didn't want to leave you guys out in a lurch, so I'm going to try to do maybe 3 chapters tonight because they are, it's a quicker book. I think I can do it if you guys will bear with me. I know that's a grisly thought. Haha. So it's good to be here. It's good to be anywhere right now other than stuck, isolated in my main studio and out here. Once again. So, yeah, I'm kind of... it's been interesting. It's been a lot of fun. I appreciate everybody who watches. This is the Sunday night edition of Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. We are in the midst, heading towards the denouement, the finale. Not this week, but next week, if the voice and the body holds up, of the Tom Swift classic book, Tom Swift and the Visitor from Planet X. And there's a lot of excitement going on in the book. Mysterious things occurring, including the electronic brain that was sent down by the visitors from Planet X. And a few surprises going on as we left off in that cliffhanger from last week's episode. And like I said, the reason that I've got this is the reason I'm not at the library today. I called the head librarian, gave her the situation, told her it made no sense for me trudging the equipment all the way down the street, up and over, and made sense just to stay and do it from the main studio here. So you're stuck with me here. But let's get going with the book, because we are behind. We are going to get started. One thing, if you guys don't mind, please give a like and subscribe. It really does help the algorithm a little bit. And this is one of those where I do enjoy doing this a lot. And we've been doing this for 2.5 years, and there's no letting up. In fact, I did mention last week that we had a big announcement, and I mentioned it, I think, on Thursday night. My brain's still a little guacamole right now from not feeling good, and still not doing good. My throat and the whole body aches. But we've got a movie in 2 weeks. I wanted to give you guys something fun to close out the summer, and a love story is in the works. Jimmy Stewart, the legendary actor Jimmy Stewart, his first feature film, Pot of Gold, will be aired here in a couple weeks and also on here on YouTube. So we got an exciting time coming up for everybody. But let's get started with the next few chapters. This is chapter 13. Disaster strikes. Tom was thunderstruck. You didn't call me? But Dad, I got the call. I definitely heard your voice. That's impossible, Mr. Swift insisted. Believe me, son, I slept soundly from the time I turned in until a little while ago. There was a moment of stunned silence as both Swifts realized that the telephone call had been faked. Then Tom exclaimed, Dad, this is serious. Deadly serious, I agree, his father replied. Are you calling from the lab? Yes. Stay there, I'll be right over, the elder scientist said. When Mr. Swift arrived, Tom related the conversation with the mysterious caller. His father listened with worried eyes and a puzzled frown. It's bad enough that an enemy was able to get that information, but potentially at least it's even more dangerous that he was able to imitate my voice so well. If he could fool you, Tom, he could fool anyone. Are you thinking the same thing I am, Dad? That may have been some insider here at Enterprise. When Tom nodded, his father gravely agreed. Yes, son, it looks that way. To imitate my voice convincingly, it would almost certainly have to be someone who has close contact with us, either at the plant or here at Shitopton. The thought of a traitor at the experimental station was repugnant to the Swifts, and to Bud as well. Not only were all employees carefully screened, but there was a close, almost family relationship among those who took part in the exciting scientific ventures at Swift Enterprises. Tom called security and asked Harlan Ames to come over to the laboratory at once. The security chief arrived within moments. Tom quickly filled him in on the details of the puzzling telephone call. Think back, Skipper, Ames urged. Was there anything at all you can remember about the voice that might give us a tip-off? I mean, was it deep, or maybe as higher pitched than you expected, or anything about the way the caller pronounced his words? Tom shook his head. Nothing. That's the trouble. He spoke in only complete sentences, but so far as I knew, it was my father calling. Ames frowned. What about background noises? Tom thought hard. None. If I had detected any special sounds during the call, I'm sure it would have struck my mind. Ames tried another tact. He asked how many people had known about the expected arrival of the brain energy from space. This was harder to answer, but as Tom and his father enumerated the persons, it did help narrow the circle of suspects. Besides the Swifts, Chow, Phil, Ames, and George Dilling were the three groups who had access to all the information. One of the radio operators at the Space Communications Laboratory, another consisted of Arv Hansen and Hank Sterling, and the workmen who had taken part in building the energy collector. The last group, which also included Hank and Arv, were the technicians who actually had gone to the hillside to await the visitor from Planet X. Tom scowled. None of those people would pull such a trick, Harlan. Any more than lines like you and Arv or Hank are above suspicion. Most of them could have easily obtained the news without going through such a rigmarole. Mr. Swift nodded. Tom's right. Unless, of course, they had some urgent reason for wanting to find out as soon as possible. Which makes me think it might have been an outsider after all, Tom argued. Remember, the Brugerians also have intercepted coded messages to and from our space friends. After a moment's silence, he added gloomily, whoever the caller was, he knew the energy was arriving. Now he knows it's here. Bud interjected. Well, if the Brugerians' agent and he's hoping to steal the brain energy. One thing's for sure, no earthquake will demolish this place as long as the energy is here at the Enterprises. A comforting thought, Bud, Mr. Swift commented with a wry smile. Again, Tom frowned. At any rate, Harlan, let's see if you can get a line on that imposter. Ames departed to begin a thorough check of all personnel at the plant who might have been implicated. Bud went on an errand as Tom began showing his father the accomplishments of the space robot. We've christened him X-Man, Tom said. By means of electronic brain, he made the visitor do a number of maneuvers in response to orders. Wonderful, Mr. Swift exclaimed, greatly impressed. Let's see if he can do his caterpillar treads as well as he does his wheels. Tom brought a small flight of portable aluminum stairs, which he used for reaching up higher shelves or tinkering with outsized machines. Tom was uncertain at first how the command, having no symbol for steps or stairs. Finally, he moved X-Men to the bottom of the steps and simply signaled, Go up. X-Men paused for a moment, then attempted the ascent. His caterpillar tracks clawed their way up the first step, then, gingerly, he essayed the next. The robot body tilted, but its gyros kept him from toppling over. Bravo! Mr. Swift applauded encouragingly, but the next instant, X-Men gave up. He slid back to the floor again with a heavy bump. Then he began whirling and darting about madly. Good night. X-Men's gone berserk, Tom cried. Now wafts of smoke could be seen issuing from the robot's wheels. He was banging wildly about the laboratory, leaving a trail of havoc. Bud, who had returned, opened the door to come in. Instantly, X-Men lunged toward him, antennas sparking fiercely and wheels smoking. Bud slammed the door hastily. The Swifts, too, found it wiser to take cover. They crouched behind the lab workbench until the frenzy was over. Presently, X-Men subsided and rolled to a complete standstill. Good grief! Tom stood up cautiously and eyed the creature. It made no further move. Bud poked his head through the doorway for a wary look, then re-entered the laboratory. What made him blow his top? Bud asked. Tom heard a quiet chuckle from his father. Actually, boys, the elder scientist said, I think we could be encouraged. Encouraged? Tom asked his father. Mr. Swift nodded. Yes, the whole thing was rather noteworthy reaction. I believe X-Men was displaying a fear of complex about navigating up those stairs. Tom gasped and broke out laughing. Dad, you're right. I bet when its body tilted over, the brain wasn't sure whether the gyro would keep it from being wrecked. It just shows old ThinkBox is getting used to more human all the time. Bud ventured to pat X-Men on his back. Relax, kid, he said with a chuckle. You're among friends, and we wouldn't dream of letting you get hurt. You're too valuable. Mr. Swift stroked his jaws thoughtfully. Valuable, yes. But if only we can get to communicate. Tom, I believe the first project we should work on is a way to make X-Men talk. After the debris had been cleaned up, the two scientists pulled their stools up to the workbench and began to discuss the problem. Bud, seeing them absorbed and realizing the discussion would soon be far beyond his depth, snapped a grinning salute at X-Men and quietly left the laboratory. Dad, the toughest part won't be the speech mechanism itself, Tom pointed out. There are several ways we could handle that, by modulating the column of air, for instance, or by some sort of speaker diaphragm. The real stumper is how to teach him our spoken language. Mr. Swift nodded. I'm afraid you're right. If the inhabitants of Planet X communicate telepathically or in some sort of wave transfer, they may have long forgotten any concept of spoken language. The Swifts battled several ideas back and forth. Then Tom snapped his fingers. Wait, Dad, I have the answer. The electronic brain. Mr. Swift's eyes lit up. Of course. The machine already translates the space code into written English. All we need to do is add a device to convert the machine's impulses into sound. In 2 hours, the Swifts had put together a mechanism designed to work through a tape recorder. This was hooked up to the electronic brain. After recordings for several moments, Tom reversed the tape and switched on the playback. A squeaky jumble of noises could be heard, but one word seemed to come through fairly distinctly. Universe. It's talking, Tom cried out. Trying to, but not succeeding very well, said Mr. Swift. Nevertheless, the two scientists were jubilant at the first breakthrough. Eagerly, they began to make adjustments on both electronic brain hookup on the converter mechanism. Tom was about to switch on the tape recorder again when the telephone rang. The young inventor was annoyed at being interrupted at such a crucial moment, but he picked up the phone. Tom Swift Jr. speaking. You have an urgent call from Washington, the operator informed him. Just a moment. Brent Elgren was calling from the Pentagon. The defense expert's voice was strained. Tom, there's been another attempt to cause an earthquake here in Washington. Tom gasped. What happened? It failed, thanks to you, but intelligence believes an attempt will be made on New York City very soon. We need your help to stop it. How near completion on the other shock deflectors? Before Tom could answer, he heard excited voices at the other end of the line. Then Elgren broke in again. A newsflash, Tom. The Whaling rangefinder plant has been demolished by an earthquake. Chapter 14. Airborne Hijackers. Mr. Swift, hearing Tom's dismayed reaction, rushed to the phone. What's wrong, son? Tom clapped his hand over the mouthpiece and quickly gave his father the news of the destroyed rangefinder plant. Then he spoke into the telephone. Barrett, we must prevent another disaster. Let me check our construction company on the Quakealizers, and I'll call you right back. Right, Tom, Algren agreed. Both Tom and Mr. Swift were shocked by this latest blow of their enemies. Tom called Ned Newton at the Swift Construction Company at once and told him the news. How soon will the Quakealizers be ready, Uncle Ned? They're finished, Tom. We're running a final inspection on them right now. We can have them ready to ship out by 1 o'clock. Tom relayed word to the Pentagon. Barrett Elgren was greatly relieved. By the way, Tom went on, what are about the other sites? Have they been chosen yet? Only tentatively, Elgren replied. We want to get your opinion first. One of the deflectors, Algren felt, should be positioned to guard New York and New England area, in view of intelligence warnings about probable attack on New York City. Another, in Cumberland Plateau region of Kentucky, could damp out shock waves threatening either the heavily industrialized Great Lakes area or any southern city. As to the other three Quakealizers, Algren suggested one be installed on the west coast, one in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and the third, the Atlantic island of San Rosa. It would protect both Latin American allies and Caribbean defense bases of the United States. Before deciding, Tom asked that Dr. Mills, the Bureau of Mines, be circuited into the telephone conversation. Mr. Swift, too, joined in on another line. The four scientists discussed the problem and referred to the geologic maps. Finally, the exact sites were agreed upon. Dad, I'm going to deliver and install one of those Quakealizers myself, Tom declared, after the telephone conference ended. Judging from the phone imposter last night, there's no telling what sort of trick our enemies may try next. Mr. Swift approved heartily. Good idea, son. In the meantime, I'll see what I can accomplish with old ThinkBox here. Tom notified Uncle Ned of the delivery sites. He requested that because of the urgency of the situation, Swift planes transport the Quakealizers. Mr. Newton promised to have 5 cargo jets loaded and prepared for takeoff from the construction company airfield. Next, Tom went to the job of rounding up flight crews. He decided that Hank Sterling, Arv Hansen, Art Wiltelis, and the crack Swift test pilot Slim Davis would each captain a plane. Tom was just hanging up the phone when Chow wheeled in a lunch cart bearing sizzling servings of steaks for the two Swifts. "How's old Thinkbox coming along?" Chow inquired. "All right now, but he went berserk a while back," Tom replied with a chuckle. Chow eyed the robot apprehensively and made a hasty exit. Both Tom Jr. and Tom Sr. were amused. As they ate, the two scientists continued their discussion on how to equip X-Men with senses and power of speech. Several minutes later, when they were finishing dessert, Bud came into the laboratory. "Tom, what's this about you hopping off somewhere to install a quaquilizer?" he asked anxiously. "Don't worry, pal. I'll need my usual co-pilot," Tom said with a grin. "Just don't have time to call you before lunch. We'll be flying down to a place called Santa Rosa in the Caribbean." At 1 o'clock, Tom briefed the flight crews and technicians. Slim was provided with 3 men who worked on the original model of the quake deflector. After making sure that each man knew their job, Tom had the groups flown out by helicopter over the Swift Construction Company airfield. Tom and Bud's cargo jet was the second to take off. On signal from the tower, the big workhorse thundered down the runway and soared off into the blue. Soon it was spearing southward towards the waters of the Atlantic. Presently, Bud drew Tom's attention to some blurry specks of light on the radar scope. "Looks like a formation of planes, Skipper." Tom studied the blips for a while. "Guess you're right. It's sure not a flock of seagulls," the young inventor frowned. "Worried?" Bud asked quietly. Tom shrugged. It could be a routine military flight. He increased speed and climbed for altitude, but the blips on the radar showed that the planes were coming steadily closer. It was clear that they were targeting Swift's cargo jet. Tom switched on the radio. Presently, a voice crackled over the headphones. "Calling Swift jet." The voice was heavily accented. "Barusians," Bud muttered. Tom made no reply to the radio challenge. Again the voice came. "Calling Swift jet. Make emergency landing on the water." Tom's only response was a fresh burst of speed. Gutting the jet motors, he sent the big cargo ship arrowing forward at supersonic speed. "There they are," Bud cried suddenly. He pointed to a cluster of silvery glints on the sky at 7 o'clock. Tom zoomed downward into a billowing cloud bank. It was a feeble hope, and Tom knew it. His only real chance was now to outrun or outmaneuver the marauders. The slim hope faded as they emerged from the cloud cover moments later. The enemy planes were not only still dogging them, but closing in rapidly. Sleek, needle-nose attack ships, they appeared to have seaplane hulls. "Wow, those are new ones," Bud gasped. "Our last warning to the Swift jet, hit the water or be shot down," the enemy voice said. Tom raced along, his mind searching frantically for a method of escape. Bud switched off the radio momentarily. "If we're going to be hijacked, Skipper, let's ditch your invention before it's too late." Tom shook his head stubbornly. "Why should I let those pirates bulldoze us? Actually, I think they're after X-Men." This last thought was a hunch that was just occurred to Tom. It's clear that their foes had learned about the arrival of the energy from space. But so far, Tom reasoned, there is no cause to suppose they know anything about the quake deflectors. Stalling for time, Tom switched on the radio again and spoke into the mic. "Swift jet to attack planes. Our home base is picking up every word of your threats. Shoot us down and America will consider it an act of war. Care to risk it?" There was a moment's silence, then replied, "War, you say? How can there be a question of war? War against whom? You don't even know our national identity." Yeah, sorry guys. "Don't kid yourselves, mister," Bud put in a snarl. We know all right, and so does the U.S. intelligence. Tom decided to risk blunt inquiry without actually giving away any facts, in case his hunch about the Berusians' knowledge was wrong. There was a phone call to Swift Enterprises last night, he radioed. We know it was fake. We know your agents are aware of our visitor, right? After a pause, the enemy spokesman replied, Perhaps. If so, what then? Just this, Tom radioed back. If you're open to meet our visitor, you're out of luck. I'll give you my word for it. If you think you'd risk such a valuable character in an unguarded crate like this? Tom and Bud looked at each other. Somehow the boys felt instinctively that Tom's words had struck home. The enemy had certainly risen to the bait. Finally came the reply, Your Swifts have a reputation of scrupulous honesty. There was a slight sneer in the speaker's voice as he considered this foolish weakness. You give me your word of honor that this character is not aboard? I do, Tom snapped. And if you don't trust me, go ahead and risk war. The boys waited breathlessly for the outcome of Tom's bold gamble. Soon they saw the result. The pursuing plane suddenly peeled off, speeding away in the direction which they first appeared. Phew! Bud wiped his hand across his face, drying away the moist with perspiration. How do you like that? Tom chuckled with relief. I like it fine. Flyboy, they are. But I'm sure worried that they're there for a while. Less than an hour later, the big cargo jet touched down at San Rosa Airport. An armed guard was on hand to greet the boys under command of an officer named Captain Sanchez. He had brought along a work crew of soldiers and also a geology expert, Professor Leone, from the island's small technical school. I have selected a spot on the eastern shore of the island, the professor told Tom. He unrolled a map and explained the site. Excellent, Tom agreed. The Quakealizer's parts, communication equipment, and small atomic earth blaster were quickly unloaded and transported to the site by trucks. In 3 hours, the installation was finished. Tom spoke Spanish fairly well, explained in small groups of San Rosa military technicians how the quake deflector worked. He also detailed one of his own men to stay on troubleshoot for the setup. And now, said Captain Sanchez, beaming, we must relax and celebrate the friendship of our two countries. Tom and Bud were eager to get home, hesitated to hurt their friendly officer's feelings. They sat through a delicious meal, followed by numerous speeches. When his own turn came, Tom used it to warn against possible sabotage attempts by the Berusians. At last the boys were allowed to take off with their crew. Swell guys, Bud said when the boys were airborne, but a bit hard to break away from. Tom grinned and became serious. You know, Bud, he said thoughtfully, those aerial hijackers gave me an idea. Let's have it, Skipper. If I could only get X-Men perfected that he would be able to report back to me, Tom explained, I could let him be kidnapped. Think of what wonderful inside man he would make in the enemy setup. He could tip us off on everything the Berusians were doing. Hey, that's neat, Bud exclaimed, wide-eyed. But how would you be sure that the Berusian rebel scientists wouldn't change him somehow? I mean, they might brainwash him or something. It is a risk, Tom agreed, but that's my problem. How to make a perfect spy out of him. It was midnight when the cargo jet touched down at the Enterprise airfield. The boys slept soundly. The next morning, Tom reported Mr. Swift and Harlan Ames the outcome of his trip to San Rosa, including the attack en route by unmarked Sky Raiders. He also privately told his father about his plan to use X-Men as electronic spy. Mr. Swift was enthusiastic. The two scientists promptly set to work. Mr. Swift built a powerful but miniature radio sets, one for receiving, one for transmitting. Tom, meanwhile, was busy on another device, also highly miniaturized, combining features of both electronic decoder and Tom's famous midget computers, known as Little Idiots. Within this equipment, Tom hoped X-Men would be able to monitor all communications at the Perusian rebel headquarters, then radio the information to Enterprises. Chow brought lunch to the laboratory at noon, and Bud came in later. Both stayed to watch the outcome of the experiment. Hank Sterling and Arv Hansen also joined the group. By mid-afternoon, the equipment was ready for a tryout. Tom opened X-Men's star head, inserted the gear, made the delicate wiring connections. So far, so good, the young inventor murmured, stepping back. Now for the real test. Will X-Men answer our questions? Tom walked over to the electronic decoder brain and began to tap out messages on the keyboard. The others waited in breathless suspense. Chapter 15. Kidnapped. The message, which Tom signaled in code over electronic brain, said, "We have a dangerous plan. If plan works, you may be exposed to enemy tampering. Will this be safe? Can you understand this?" There was a tense pause. Then the bell rang from out of the machine, and keys began to punch out a reply on the tape. "No one can alter this brain, nor can they change its purpose. They can only destroy the energy holder." As Tom finished reading the message aloud, Chow gave a whoop of delight, and the whole group burst into spontaneous cheers. "Terrific, Skipper," Bud exclaimed, clapping his pal on the back. The others gathered around to add their congratulations. Mr. Swift, beaming with pride, gave Tom a quick hand squeeze. "It's an amazing achievement, son. It may prove to be the key for unlocking the secrets of space, if and when we have time to research after this crisis is over." "I sure hope so, Dad," Tom murmured. Though jubilant, the young inventor realized that this was the first step of his plan is to checkmate the Brugerian rebels. The real perils still lay ahead. Tom called Harlan Ames and asked him to come to the laboratory for the conference. When the security chief arrived, he was impressed, as the others were, with the way Tom was able to communicate with X-Men. "The problem now," Tom said, "is how do we have him kidnapped?" Sorry, guys, this voice is going. Chow, wary as a coyote, offered his opinion that the safest way would merely to leave the space robot unguarded somewhere about the grounds on Enterprises. Ames shook his head. "Too obvious. They'd suspect a trap." Tom agreed. "Well, then how about trucking him along the highway whereabouts, as you were sending him down to Washington?" This too was vetoed on the grounds that a shrewd espionage agent would guess the valuable prize would be entrusted to a slow, vulnerable method of transport. "Then what about an air flight?" Hank Sterling suggested. "Brand my 6 guns. That'd be just begging to get shot down yourself," Chow fumed. "Not if we used the plane like the Sky Queen, equipped with jet lifters," Hank argued. "If any hijacked plane jumped us, they'd have to let us come down safely in order to get their hands on X-Men. If we could land on the water or just hover while they made the transfer. And after they made it safe, aboard their own plane, they'd blast yours to smithereens," Chow retorted. Tom, too, thought the plane flight was unwise, but for different reasons. It might look suspicious to the Brugerians after the Swifts had been warned by the one aerial hijack attempt. Also, they might be deterred by fear of war, thinking that the U.S. Air Force would doubtless be alerted to the possibility of attack. "So right," Ames agreed. After a thoughtful pause, he added, "Tom, What about transporting X-Men by submarine? We know that every spy apparatus in the hemisphere is constantly trying to probe on what goes on at Fairing Island, where our subs are based. No doubt about that, Tom conceded. So, Ames continued, any move to Fairing would certainly make the Brazilian agents prick up their ears. Their own spy subs probably would come prowling around the island and detect the departure of a Swift sub. And they would feel an undersea hijack attempt would be a fairly safe gamble. The others looked thoughtful, then slowly nodded in agreement. Ames's reasoning sounded highly logical. Tom, you'll insist on going, I suppose, Mr. Swift said somberly. Of course, Dad. After all, the kidnap plan was my idea, Tom replied. Another thing I'll insist on is that you don't go. We have Mother and Sandy to think of, and it's not right for them to risk both our necks. Realizing that it was hopeless to dissuade his son, and realizing the basic fairness of Tom's position, Mr. Swift did not argue. Bud, Hank, Chow, and Arv immediately volunteered to accompany the young inventor on his dangerous mission. Tom gratefully accepted their help. He asked all hands to assemble on the Enterprise's airfield at 6 the next morning for the flight to Fairing. After the others had left, Tom and his father resumed their experiments with X-Men. Mr. Swift suggested adding a device to the radio equipment to make it disintegrate if tampered with, before the rebel Barusians can learn the secret of your electronic spy. Good idea, Dad. And how about our doing the job with Swiftonium? This was an unusual radioactive ore which Tom had discovered in South America. Mr. Swift nodded as he began to work. Tom watched admiringly as his father reconstructed the radio, coating the entire thing with Swiftonium compound. He at once placed the set in a small oven, which raised it to 50 degrees centigrade. When this cools, the set will be stable, Mr. Swift said. But if you should move any parts of it after it cools, all of the organic parts, like the circuit boards, the insulation, the carbon resistors, etc., will oxidize and disappear as gas. You will not be able to tamper with a single unit. Wonderful, Dad, Tom murmured when the device was finished. I wish I had your know-how in microchemistry. And I wish I had yours in electronics, the elder scientist declared with a chuckle. After Swifts installed the device in X-Men's Starhead, Tom used electronic brain to inform the robot about the whole scheme. Both Tom Jr. and Tom Sr. were delighted when X-Men showed real enthusiasm. He replied via the printed tape on the recorder, "Do not worry, my friends. I will not respond to any attempts by Brazilian scientists to communicate with me. My planet is well aware of their dangerous aims. Having conquered your world, they would next invade space." Looks as though X-Men got their number all right, Tom said with satisfaction. Early the next morning, Mr. Swift drove Tom to Enterprise Airfield to meet his friends. Hank Sterling, Bud, Chow were already on hand, and Arv Hansen arrived a few moments later. Tom and Bud left the others to bring X-Men to the small panel truck. Soon the space robot was safely loaded aboard the transport helicopter. The others took their places inside the cabin. "Good luck, son." Mr. Swift forced a smile as he gave Tom a parting handshake. "Don't worry, Dad. I'll be back soon," Tom assured him. The nature of the trip had been described only vaguely to Mrs. Swift and Sandy in order to keep them from worrying. The short hop over to Fairing Island was soon completed. Lying just off the Atlantic coast, Fairing had been a barren, thumb-shaped expanse of scrub grass and sand dunes. Now it was a Swift's top-secret rocket base, tightly guarded by drone planes and radar. As the helicopter approached its destination, Tom radioed for clearance, then whirred down towards the landing field. The barracks, workshops, and launching areas of the base lay spread out in full view. Cargo rockets bristled on their launching pads, along with Tom's spaceships
included the mighty Titan, the oddly shaped Challenger, and Cosmic Sailor. North and south, the island was fringed with docks. Here, the recovery tugs and fuel tankers were moored, as well as were the Swift's fleet of undersea craft. Tom had chosen under a cargo-hauling jet marine named the Swift Sure. It was a larger version of the original two-man jet sub, the Ocean Dart. He had given orders the night before to have it ready for sea by morning. By jeep and truck, Tom's group sped across the island to the dock. X-Men was quickly lowered in through the sub's hatch. The others followed, the conning tower attached and dogged shut, and soon the Swift Shore was gliding off into the shadowy blue-green depths. "What's your sailing plan, Skipper?" Hank Sterling inquired. The quiet-spoken, square-jawed engineer stood beside Tom with the atomic turbine controls and looked through the transparent nose of the jet marine. "Go slow. Give him plenty of chance to pick up our trail," Tom replied. 2 hours they cruised at moderate speed. Nothing happened. Disappointed, Tom surfaced and radioed his father for news after cutting the automatic scrambling device. "You're in time for exciting flash," Mr. Swift replied jubilantly. What is it, Dad? Sorry." An attempt to earthquake New York was just failed. Grins broke out on the faces of the crew as they heard Mr. Swift's words over the loudspeaker. Bud let out a happy whoop. "That's great, Dad," Tom said. "Maybe we've got 'em licked from the quake front. No luck so far on our new project." "Well, keep in touch and let me know how things go if anything happens," Mr. Swift urged. "Right, Tom." Right, Tom said. Again, the Swift Sure submerged. This time it was only a few minutes before Arv Hansen gave a warning. "Something on our sonar scope, Skipper." Bud, Hank, and Chow hastily gathered around the scope to watch. The blip grew larger rapidly. It was clearly another submarine closing in on their collision course. Tom put on a burst of speed as if attempting to outrace their pursuer, but he was careful to gauge his knots by reports from the sonar scope in order not to widen the gap between the two craft. There seemed no danger that this would happen, although the Swift Sure raced ahead faster and faster. Still, the enemy sub continued to close in like a marauding shark, finally passing Tom's craft. "Some baby," Bud murmured respectfully. The words were hardly out of his mouth when a missile streaked across their bow in plain view of the Swift Sure's transparent nose. Its foaming wake rocked the jet marine. "They're attacking us," Bud cried out. Tom slammed shut the turbine throttle, bringing the craft to a gliding halt in the water. At the same time, he switched on the sonar phone. "Orders to Swift sub," a voice barked over the set. "Surface and heave to. No tricks or the next missile will not cross your bow." Tom blew his tanks and sent the Swift Sure spearing upward. As the conning tower broke water, Tom and the men swarmed on deck. Seconds later, a sleek gray enemy submarine knifed into view. Its hatch opened and several men climbed out. To Tom's amazement, their leader was Samson Narco. Chow let out a yelp of rage. "Why, you sneaking double-dyed bushwhacking polecat," the old Westerner bellowed. "We should have kept you hog-tied instead of letting you go." Narco ignored the outburst and raised a megaphone to his lips. "Hand over your cargo, and do it quickly." "What cargo?" Tom snapped back. "And what's the meaning of this outrage? You realize this is piracy." "I realize you'll wind up on the bottom of the with the slightest show of resistance," Narco warned menacingly. "You know very well what cargo I refer to. Now do not try our patience." Tom and his crew pretended to put up a blustering, indignant front. Chow was especially convincing with his blistering torrent of salty Texas invectives. Narco's only reply was to bark out and order his men in Perusian. Quickly, the enemy submarine maneuvered closer until the two craft were shocked to block. Narco and his men leaped aboard the swift shore, armed with submachine guns and automatics. I'm warning you, Narco, Tom began angrily, but Narco cut off the young inventor short by poking him in the ribs with the gun muzzle, and then issued orders to the two men to go below. Thanks so much, my stupid friends, Narco taunted them with a jeering laugh. Then he followed his crew as the last one scrambled back to the enemy's submarine. With laughs and waves, they disappeared into the conning tower. The hatch was clamped shut, and the raider promptly submerged. Tom and his men were amazed but delighted at not having been taken prisoner along with X-Men. All of them broke into happy chuckles of relief. Wow, that's what I call fast service, Bud exclaimed. I'm not sure a blamed sight easier I expected, Chow said. Thought for a while they might end up feeding us the fishes. You put on a real act, Chow, Tom said, clapping the old cook on the back. Well, they've taken the bait. Now let's hope it pays off for us. The Americans swarmed below again, closed the hatch, and submerged. Tom took his time in bringing the jet pumps to speed. Wonder if we should pretend to proceed on course or turn around and head for home, he murmured to Hank. Hank's reply came short from yelling at Hansen through the sonar scope. Missile coming, Skipper, straight at us. Wasn't sure if I was going to be able to do it. The voice is going. You guys know that. I think that I can make Chapter 16 tonight. We'll do that. See how much the voice goes out. That kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't think it's going to work, guys. His voice is slowly going right now. I'm thinking what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut us short. And with that, we will do a larger edition next week. We will do chapters 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. 5 chapters next week. The voice is not going well right now. But, yeah, next week, we will have the final chapters of Tom Swift and the Visitor from Planet X. And what about that missile that's coming towards the Swift Sphere? Will it hit? We don't know. It was I'm liking the story so far. I really am. Hope you guys are too. I am Joel K. This is Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. I know the graphics over here are going to say chapter 13, 14, 15. I am dealing, if you saw the beginning of the show, we are dealing with the big C, and my voice and my body are not doing so good. I am still sick and trying my best to make sure you guys have a good show in the long run. And hope you enjoy the show. Hope you're enjoying the book this week through. Remember, in a couple weeks, we have a movie here on the channel, and I hope you guys enjoy it. We'll have graphics and more information next week, but it will be the first of the really good original movies by, I almost said Henry Fonda, but by Jimmy Stewart. His first feature film, Pot of Gold. And we will do that next week, in a couple weeks. But before we go, as we do with the Thursday night show, we do have a final quote for the night. And this one, from an ex-president, very wise man. Show me a man who gets rich by being a politician, and I'll show you a crook. Show me a man who gets rich by being a politician, I'll show you a crook. The great Harry S. Truman. Good soldier, good president. We're going to get out of here. I appreciate everybody who stopped in tonight. Next week, 5 chapters. Chapters 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. We will wrap up this next installment of the Tom Swift series. Tom Swift and the Visitor from Planet X. Take care, you guys. Be well, be safe. I am going to be well, be safe, I hope. I still feel miserable, but I wanted to try to get this done for you guys. Take care, you guys. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you this Thursday and then next Sunday for the conclusion of Tom Swift and the Visitor from Planet X. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye.